Year 2, here we are on Wednesday the 3rd of March 2021, continuing our lovely fractions lessons. And this is the second lesson on comparing and ordering fractions today. It's lesson 8 in your textbook 2B, page 122. So that's page 122. And we've got Charles and Holly enjoying some cakes. Oh, they do enjoy their cakes, don't they, Charles and Holly? If you remember, children, yesterday they were sharing, okay, some food. Lulu and Elliot had cakes. Today, Charles and Holly get a turn at having some cake. So that's lovely for Charles and Holly. Charles and Holly had cakes of the same size. Charles ate half of his cake. Holly ate 1/4 of her cake. The question is, who ate more cake? So, which fraction is larger? 1/2 or 1/4? Now, I'm very hopeful, after all the work we've done on halves and quarters, that you have realised that 1/2 of a cake is twice as big as 1/4 of a cake, because 2/4 is the same as a half. So if you're going to eat a half a cake, okay, you're going to eat double what the quarter would be, the fraction of 1/4. So Charles definitely ate more cake than Holly. Now we have Ruby asking quite an important question. What do you notice about the denominators and numerators of the two fractions? Okay, so remember the numerator, number of parts, and denominator, how many equal parts. So let's have a little look. In the fraction of 1/2, we have a numerator of 1 and a denominator of 2. In a quarter, we have a numerator of 1 and a denominator of 4. What do you notice? Well, you notice, hopefully, that the numerators are exactly the same, 1 part, okay, but the denominators are different. And sometimes, children, and I'm sure it's not going to be you guys today, but sometimes children think because 4 is bigger than 2, that the fraction of a quarter, okay, is going to be bigger than a fraction of a half because the number 4 is bigger. But it's the amount of parts it's been divided into, and the more parts means the smaller amount. Yes? Okay, keep that in mind today. Let's have a little look at question 2, where we're comparing 1/2 with 1/3. Which is less? Which is more? Okay, so we need to complete the sentence. Is it 1/2 is less than 1/3, or 1/3 is less than 1/2? Well, have a little look at the picture. I'm sure if this was a cake and you were hungry, you would soon realise that having 1/3 of the cake was going to be less than having half the cake. And look at the denominators. Okay, numerators are the same, but the denominator, the bigger the denominator, the smaller the amount. Okay. And therefore 1/2 is more than 1/3. And then we can use our greater and less than symbols up here. So remember, the crocodile eats the biggest number, so 1/2 is greater than 1/3. Oh, don't think you'll be able to see that, but you know that if you're listening, and 1/3 is less than 1/2. Okay. Let's go on to Elliot's question. Arrange the fractions in order starting with the smallest. Remember, children, to read carefully the question. So the smallest amount is 1/4. The greatest amount is 1/2, and 1/3 comes in between. As you can see, the numbers, the smallest fraction has the largest denominator. The biggest fraction has the smallest denominator. Part 4 shows our fractions again on a number line. Okay, and we've got each of the fractions marked from 0 up to a quarter, to a third, to a half, to 1, in order of size from smallest to largest. And here we've got to use our symbols for greater than and less than. So we're looking at which is greater, okay, or smaller. So the quarter is smaller than a third. A quarter is smaller than a half or less than a half, but a half is greater than a third. And then you've got to arrange them in order, starting with the greatest. I think I can leave you to do that by yourselves. When you move to guided practice in your textbooks, you've got more questions asking you about the size of the fraction. Is it more or less than? And more symbols, okay, that we recognize as greater and less than symbols. You start by comparing 2/3 and 2/4. Then you move on to compare 1/4 and 1/3. And finally, you have to arrange the fractions in order, starting with the greatest. And you've got 2 of these to do. So you're looking at these fractions first, starting with the greatest, and then these fractions and ordering them from greatest to smallest. And I like the question here that Holly poses. What is 2 halves? It is read as 2 halves, and it's equal to what? If you had 2 halves of a cake, you'd be eating. If you ate 2 halves, you'd be eating the whole cake, wouldn't you? Because there are 2 halves. Remember, in one whole. 1 half and 2 halves makes the whole. Okay. Oh, sorry, I didn't give you the page numbers. So you continue to pages 109 and 110 of your workbook if you have time. And again, we have our comparing and ordering fractions questions. Here we get to colour. First question, A and B. Get your colouring pencils out to show 1/2, 1/3, and which is greater and which is smaller than. And then you have to do the same for 2/6 and 2/3. 2 parts out of 6 equal parts coloured, 2 parts out of 3 equal parts to be coloured, and then your greater than and smaller than sentences. And then finally, arrange the fractions, starting with the smallest and comparing 1 part out of 3, 1 out of 5, known as fifths, and 1 out of 4 are quarters. So we've got thirds, fifths, and quarters to compare. Remember what we look at with the denominators. Okay, the larger the denominator, the smaller the amount. You can see that in the pictures. The larger the denominator, the smaller the amount. Then you have to order these fractions from the smallest, and then 2 questions about ordering fractions from the greatest. Okay, and remember that denominator is very important. As long as the numerator is the same, which it is on all of these questions, then you are focused very much on the denominator, the number below the line that tells us how many parts the whole is divided into. Okay, enjoy your second lesson on comparing and ordering fractions today.